So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something really intimate and honestly a very vulnerable topic that one of you shared with us. We're looking at the complex reality of cross-dressing inside long-term relationships, and specifically that critical, often life-altering choice between secrecy and honesty.
Our mission here is really to unpack the core truths about acceptance, the real danger of suppression, and that crucial difference between a behavior and an identity.
Okay, so let's really get into this. The source material draws this incredibly sharp line, dividing a life into two distinct chapters. There's before discovery, and then there's after. The moment the truth comes out is described as standing in the center of a storm. So when that storm hits, what exactly is hanging in the balance? What are those immediate fears?
I mean, what's at stake? Quite literally, everything. The accounts we looked at make it so clear that the fear isn't just about, personal embarrassment or shame. It's about what that visibility might actually cost. The structural integrity of their entire life, love, stability, the family unit, even their public identity. It all seems to be hanging by a single thread.
For the crossdresser, the deepest fear is losing the person they love. But for the partner?
For the partner, the deepest fear is realizing the person they thought they loved maybe never truly existed in the first place.
Wow. That's a huge distinction, isn't it? The fear of losing someone versus the fear that you never really knew them. And this brings us right to the question of honesty. Why is it so critical, even when it feels like lighting a match next to a powder keg?
Well, because the sources just hammer this point home again and again. The belief that love alone will smooth everything over is just a destructive fantasy most of the time.
It's not enough.
It's not. If the foundation of your relationship is this shared understanding, then a sudden discovery shatters that illusion of safety. Reality is just far more complicated than saying, if you love me, you'll get it. Love gives you the motive to talk, sure, but it doesn't automatically give you the tools for acceptance.
What's so fascinating here is the analysis of the partner's immediate reaction. I mean, we often focus on the crossdresser's pain, but the sources dive really deep into the partner's shock. And they make this distinction that the initial shock is driven by profound fear, not by cruelty.
Right, and that fear is rooted in cultural programming, deeply ingrained societal scripts. Most partners have these unconscious beliefs about gender, about masculinity, about what their heterosexual relationship is supposed to look like.
So the discovery of clothing or a violation of the contract.
Exactly. It feels like the ground is shifting under their feet, threatening to swallow their life whole. The panic is real because their entire self-concept as a partner is suddenly on trial.
So if they respond with anger or they retreat, it's really an expression of survival panic.
Precisely. And this leads directly to the core emotional mismatch we see across all these accounts. The crossdresser expects immediate understanding. I mean, this part of them feels natural, familiar, even necessary. They've lived with it for decades, maybe.
So they're ready to share this essential part of who they are.
They're ready, but the partner has zero preparation. Zero.
Right.
For the partner, it feels, as the sources put it, foreign and threatening. They're seeing it for the very first time, and it contradicts the entire story of their shared life. And this mismatch creates this incredibly painful disconnect right when vulnerability is needed most from both of them.
So one person is saying, please accept me for who I am, and the other person is hearing, I am not who you thought I was, and your reality is changing right now.
That's it, exactly.
Okay, so for someone navigating this, what does it all mean? It sounds like it means setting very realistic expectations. Hurtful, fear-driven reactions are human, but they reveal the distance you now have to bridge.
Yes. You can't just expect immediate acceptance because you finally found the courage. The conversation has just begun, and the sources say it's often measured in years, not weeks.
And that hard reality, I think that brings us to the really difficult subject of compatibility. Acceptance is possible, we should say that. Many relationships do move forward, but the source material is explicit. It is not promised.
And that's a powerful distinction. Love is so often mistaken for unconditional compatibility.
And maybe the most uncomfortable takeaway from all this, the relationship isn't failing because one person is wrong or the other is unloving. It's failing because the truth revealed a fundamental difference in needs or boundaries that just wasn't visible before.
Exactly. And denying that difference, that's where the real long-term damage starts.
Damage that often begins with what the sources call the dangerous fantasy of quitting.
Yes. When faced with losing everything, so many crossdressers promise they'll stop. They'll suppress it. And in that moment of desperation and fear, they are being profoundly sincere.
But sincerity isn't sustainability. It just buys them a few months of silence.
That's all it is. And the sources clarify why quitting is, for the vast majority, just impossible. It's not a bad habit you can break with discipline, like quitting smoking. It's described as a recurring, deeply rooted aspect of self-expression and emotional balance. It serves a vital internal function.
So if you try to stop it, you're trying to cut off a necessary part of your emotional mechanism, and that's going to have consequences.
Absolutely. The consequences of failed suppression are just tragically predictable. At first, maybe there's relief, the partner's reassured, the crisis is over. But the desire always returns. And when it does, it brings with it this new wave of shame, more secrecy, and a sense of personal failure.
And the cycle just reinforces itself. You hid who you are, you failed to stop being who you are, and now you feel doubly ashamed.
Doubly ashamed and more isolated than ever.
And this is where it gets really, well, insidious, I think is the right word. When it's forced underground, the damage is rarely immediate. The surface looks stable, but underneath there's this complete internal erosion.
Right. The couple thinks they solved the problem, but they've just moved the tension indoors and made it invisible. Secrets always have a cost.
What are the specific costs the material outlines?
Well, first, emotional tension just builds. It comes out as irritability or avoidance in totally unrelated parts of their life. Then anxiety increases, the constant fear of being caught, of breaking the fragile truce. And maybe most dangerously, resentment quietly takes root.
Resentment from both sides, I'd imagine.
Both sides. The partner feels entitled to the sacrifice, and the crossdresser resents having to make it. And the tragic irony is that the very attempt to preserve the relationship by hiding the truth is what slowly undermines it. Secrets multiply. Trust weakens.
And the crossdresser feels unseen or fundamentally misunderstood.
Right. While the partner just senses this growing distance, this hollowness, without knowing why. Only that the security they fought for feels fake.
That dynamic is the ultimate reason why compromise over identity just doesn't work long term. And this brings us to probably the most powerful statement in the source material. Cross-dressing is part of who they are. Now, we have to clarify, this doesn't automatically mean every cross-dresser is transgender. But the point is that it is tied to identity, not just behavior.
Understanding that distinction is everything. It really is. Let's look at the difference. Behaviors like leaving socks on the floor can be negotiated. You can agree on limits.
You can compromise.
You can compromise. But identity cannot be modified in the same way. When something is deeply tied to who you feel you are, treating it as optional leads to internalizing a shame that can last for decades.
So if I accept that I'm someone who needs this expression, I'm validating myself. If I treat it like a bad habit, I'm just telling myself I'm broken.
That's it. Recognizing it as an authentic expression of self is the foundation for making any real, non-destructive choices. The moment you define it as a flaw, you are guaranteeing failure.
And this internal conflict for the crossdresser becomes brutal. The choice is an ultimate bind. Honesty feels like risking everything. But silence feels like slowly disappearing.
It's the ultimate zero-sum game, and it's often compounded by this external belief that wanting this expression is selfish, that they should just suck it up for the family.
Right.
But the sources tackle this head-on. The truth is, denying a core part of your identity leads to emotional withdrawal that affects both partners. That self-sacrifice, it might look noble, but it breeds a loneliness and a quiet despair inside that just bleeds into the relationship no matter what.
Self-erasure doesn't protect the relationship, it just poisons it from within. So, moving forward, what does living honestly actually require once you accept this is identity, not behavior?
It requires clarity and a huge dose of realism. It requires understanding that this part of you is not temporary. It's not going away. And that one truth changes the entire approach. It means moving conversations away from desperate bargaining. If I stop, will you stay? And rooting them in truth. This is who I am. Can we build a future together with this truth?
So the goal isn't just surviving the revelation. It's evaluating whether the relationship can truly support both people as they actually are.
Yes. Not as they wish the other would become. You have to ask, is this new, complex reality strong enough for both of us to thrive? And sometimes the honest answer is no. And that's a painful but necessary truth.
It's just the focus from how do I hide this to how do I integrate this?
And a huge part of that integration, highlighted in the sources, is community.
Right. Why is community so vital here?
Because it dissolves the intense isolation that secrecy creates. When you're hiding, you feel like an anomaly, like you're the only one. Connecting with others who share similar experiences, even just reading their stories, reinforces that your feelings are not rare or abnormal or shameful. It provides essential validation.
So the core message of this deep dive is, It's realism and self-acceptance. It's not about condemnation. The material isn't attacking partners for struggling, nor is it shaming cross-dressers for existing.
Exactly. The crucial takeaway is this. You are not broken because you cross-dress, and you are not weak for wanting self-expression. The most steady truth through this whole journey is that your relationship with yourself shapes every single outcome that follows. Cross-dressing isn't something to be erased. It's something to be understood, respected, and integrated into your life with care.
And integration, at the end of the day, is about truth.